Before I do start this video, make sure to use my TCG player affiliate down below if you're looking for any of these singles that I talk about today. Also, this channel is sponsored by Arcane Fortress. If you're looking for the best deck boxes around, make sure to use my link down below in the description to check them out. One other way you can support the channel is by becoming a patron. There are some great benefits of being a patron to the channel, such as giveaways, deck advice, and more when you do join. Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Doe, and coming back at you with another video today on PubStomp MTG. If you've seen my previous video on my top 10 commanders, Ezio was my #1 pick for the best commander of the entire set. And so with that, I decided to make a deck tech around him, mainly because he's a 5-color commander. We could have all the Assassin's Creed commanders in here, as long as they fit with the strategy. Of course, there's going to be some that doesn't really fit with the strategy, but in most cases, Ezio is going to be the best pick for the best Assassin's Creed commander that you can choose, because you can choose 5 colors, and he can cheat in Assassins. So let's read what he does. So for Ezio, it's a 1 and a black, so it's a very cheap commander, only costing 2 mana. So getting it early on in the game and dealing combat damage is very important for this deck. He has a 3/2 body with menace, and for 2 mana, that's actually a pretty good rate by itself. And assassin spells you cast have free running to black. So free running is essentially you may cast a spell for its free running cost if you deal combat damage to a player this turn with an assassin or a commander. He also does have an activated ability when you deal combat damage with him. You may pay Wooburg mana. If that player has 10 or less life, when you do, that player loses the game. So this is a win con staple to your commander and could essentially cheat in assassins when you deal combat damage with him or other assassins. So this commander is quite powerful, and honestly a little bit too powerful just for 2 mana. I mean, you just see all those stats on it. And so of course this is going to be your best bet for the best commander of the entire set for your Assassin's Creed deck. And so let's get it started. First and foremost, we're going to talk about the game plan. What are we trying to achieve in this deck? Because this is an aggressive strategy, we could take advantage of some cards like Biden of Thassa and Reconnaissance Mission. A decent amount of assassins have some sort of evasion, like our commander with Menace. That way we could go in for combat damage, maybe not even get blocked. We might as well get rewarded for that by getting card advantage. Both of these essentially have that same ability. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. Biden of Thassa does have a great ability. By tapping it, creatures your opponents control attack this turn if able, so like a goading effect. So that way, while your opponent's creatures are tapped down, you can swing at that specific opponent to get some card advantage. Also reprinted in the Assassin's Creed set, Black Market Connections is a great option in our deck. Depending on how much life you want to pay, you can get great advantage with this. If you want to pay 1 life, create a treasure token. If you want to pay 2 life, draw a card. If you want to pay 3 life, you make a 3/2 colorless shapeshifter token. This isn't a May ability, so you have to choose 1 or more. This essentially does everything for us. It ramps us ahead. It also will give us card advantage. And if we want to make an assassin on the battlefield because it's a changeling on the battlefield, we can do so by using all those abilities. Because there is a specific focus on creature types, Raise the Palisade is a great option for us. Choose a creature type, return all creatures that aren't the chosen type to their owner hand. In this deck, we're easily going to be choosing assassins so that we can have that way of dealing combat damage uncontested, because we just put all the creature cards into their opponent's hands. So a good 90% of the time, this is going to be a great spell to return all creatures to their hand, all the while you keep your assassins on the battlefield. I mean, there's some occasions where some people may have assassin decks too, but that's very unlikely in my opinion. I also want to focus on giving our creatures unblockable, so cards that we could take advantage of that with is Shizo and the Black Gate. With Shizo, target legendary creature gains fear until end of turn, so it can't be blocked except by artifact creatures or black creatures, so most likely you're going to get in for some damage by giving your commander fear. And the Black Gate is a little better in my opinion, because you can pay 1 and black and tap it, choose a player with the most life or tied with the most life. Target creature can't be blocked by creatures that player controls this turn, so that we have a for sure way of getting in for combat damage. The only downside to this card though is if we have the most life on the battlefield, this is not really going to work that well, because you choose a player with the most life or tied with the most life. If we have the most life, we're not going to be able to give our creatures unblockable. But let's continue the aggressive strategy and talk about shared animosity and overpowering attack. Because we're solely focusing on assassins, whenever a creature you control attacks, gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each other attacking creature that shares a creature type with it. So if we have 5 assassins on the battlefield, they're all going to get +4/+0. And overpowering attack is actually a pretty good extra combat spell. It does have that free running cost of 2 and a red. Untap all creatures you control that attack this turn. If it's your main phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase, following by an additional main phase. So this technically costs 5 mana, but we can reduce it by that free running cost, so this is just another excellent choice in our aggressive strategy. I mentioned this before in another video, Double Down is an incredible card for this deck, mainly because whenever you cast an outlaw spell, you copy that spell. Obviously, outlaws are going to be assassins in addition to that type. The only downside to this card though is the fact that there's a lot of legendary assassins in this deck. deck, you want to choose wisely on what you copy because the legend rule will apply to one of your cards. But obviously one of the better cards that you can take advantage of in this deck is Roaming Throne. This is a pretty simple and effective card in all creature type strategies. Of course, it's going to be a great include in Assassin's decks because you can copy the triggered abilities you control with Assassins. So I don't really need to talk about this card too much because everybody knows it's good. Everybody knows it's going to be really good in Assassin's deck specifically. Speaking of Assassins, what are the best Assassins that we could take advantage of in this deck? Of course, I added a lot of the Assassin's Creed cards in this deck like Rooftop Bypass and Achilles Davenport. Rooftop Bypass is a great enchantment whenever one or more non-token creatures you control deal combat damage to a player. Create a 1/1 black assassin creature token with Menace. So if we swing at 3 different people with 3 different assassins that are non-tokens, we can make 3 1/1 black creature tokens that are our assassins. And we could boost the power of our assassins by using Achilles because other assassins you control get +1/+1, and he also has Menace. Plus he does have free running, so it can be a reduced cost. Other aggressive assassins I do want to highlight is Arno Dorian, Eye of Alexandria, and Bayek of Siwa. Arno is essentially another anthem for your assassins, giving them +2/+0, but it also does have disguise, so you could use a combat trip by flipping it up and then giving all your assassins +2/+0 on combat. We can make more assassins with Aya, and Bayek is incredible in this deck as long as you turn other historic creatures you control have double strike, and it does have disguise itself, so very similar to Arno. We can disguise it, then flip it up in combat, giving all our creatures double strike by a surprise attack. But let's talk about assassins that will give us value. Olivia, Opulent Outlaw, Edward Kenway, and Ezio are all great options for that. On combat damage, Olivia will give us treasure tokens, and then we can sacrifice treasures to buff up all our creatures. Edward Kenway will do a similar thing at the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each tapped assassin you control, so obviously we are in an aggressive theme. We want to make sure we're attacking with our assassins. They will be tapped and we can make treasures out of that. With Ezio, it has the ability whenever assassin you control deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card, so that same instance of getting us that advantage. Not that you have to add these, but because that free running ability our commander does have, Thraxamundar and Vein Ripper could be potentially good. Instead of these with our hefty mana cost, we could just cheated them for 2 black mana with our commander when we deal combat damage with an assassin or commander we control. So I thought I would quickly highlight these because these are fun includes. I don't think they're necessarily going to be the best. Another fun assassin from Outlaws of Thunder Junction, Vraska the Silencer, is a great option because whenever a non-token creature an opponent controls dies, you may pay 1 mana. If you to return that card to the battlefield tapped under your control, it's a treasure artifact. So basically every time somebody decides to remove a creature on the battlefield, we can have it on our side of the battlefield as a treasure. Also, it can be pretty evasive having that death touch. Not a lot of people want to block into that. The same can be said for Massacre Girl, Known Killer. This is incredible in the deck because it has Menace and creatures you control have Wither. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, if its toughness was less than 1, you draw a card. In this aggressive theme, a lot of our opponents are going to have to make tough choices of whether to block our cards or not to block our cards. This will give them even a tougher choice because all our creatures will have Wither, so they will deal damage in the form of -1/-1 counters. So either way, this card is going to be a win-win for us, getting us a lot of value and also removing our opponent's creatures little by little. The best assassins you can put in this deck are Auditore and Connor. Auditore on attack trigger can put a lot of different assassins on the battlefield that are copies of assassins in exile with memory counters. So in a weird way, this kind of feels like recursion. Connor also does have a great ability when it deals combat damage to a player. You create a 1/1 black assassin creature token with Menace. There's a little bit of an equipment sub-theme, not too much in this deck, but there's enough that this may be a good fit in there too. But I would say out of all the assassins, these are probably one of the best ones you can choose from, especially Auditore. Again, don't crucify me in the comments. I know these are probably one of the hardest names to pronounce. So now that I've talked about assassins, let's now focus on cards that you can take advantage of to win the game because of our commander's ability of making an opponent lose a game if they have 10 or less life. We could absolutely take advantage of Tree of Perdition. This has the ability to exchange target opponent's life total with Tree of Perdition's toughness. So Ezio works perfectly with Tree of Perdition because it does have 13 toughness. If we exchange that with an opponent, they will have 13 life. And what do you know? Ezio has that magical number of 3 so that we could swing in at that opponent and they will have 10 or less life. So that way we could activate Ezio's ability, making them lose the game. The same can be said for another card with Soren Markov. He has a simple ability, target opponent's life total becomes 10, so we could just swing it with Ezio and then pay into that activated ability and make that opponent lose the game the same way as Tree of Perdition. Problem with this though is the fact that there's 2 other players that you may have to face after you kill that one opponent, but you're in luck. If you have Ramses Assassin Lord, whenever a player loses the game, if they were attacked this turn by assassin you controlled, you win the game. So if you have these 2 on the battlefield with a Soren or a Tree of Perdition, you swing it at an opponent with Ezio that's an assassin, that player loses the game, but because of Ramses Assassin Lord's ability, everybody loses the game besides you. So of course this is probably one of the best combos that you can take advantage of in an Ezio deck because you have all color access, you make one opponent lose the game, you make all opponents lose the game if you have Ramses Assassin Lord. So if somebody ever manages to pull this off, make sure to comment down below. I would love to hear your thoughts and if you ever did that. So with that said, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this video on Ezio. This is one incredible commander, especially for assassins. It was like it was just made for assassins because of course it's a 5-color commander with that cost. But I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments. What is your favorite Assassin's Creed commander from this entire set? This was a really cool set to see, and a lot of different commanders out of it were pretty enticing for me. I'm absolutely going to build Edward Kenway, and I'm super excited to see what's going to happen in Bloomborough in the next couple weeks. So stay tuned when I cover that. Also make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. With that out of the way, thank you for stomping by.